Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Mortgage by Gretchen show, where I talk to real people in the field of real estate and business who are not only experts, but they are generous and willing to share their knowledge and wisdom with us here today. And the goal of the show is to let you gain some information and tips to help you reach your goals in business and in owning real estate, and in taking the guesswork out of who to call when you need help. And today, I'm very grateful to have Leisse Wilcox with me here. Hi, Leisse.
Hello.
And Leisse helps women make more money. She is a passionate speaker, a two-time best-selling author, and results-focused coach. And she works with purpose-driven people who are ready to close the gap between their self-worth and their net worth. Leisse built her first multiple six-figure business with while navigating cancer, a complex divorce, the fallout of emotional and financial abuse, and solo parenting three young girls. She is no stranger to resiliency, reinvention, and starting over at any age. And she knows intimately that every relationship we have in business, life, love, and money is built on the foundation of the relationship we have with ourselves and being able to define what enough feels like, which is amazing. So, yeah, that's a lot. We were first introduced through Instagram. We had a mutual friend, Angie Ross,
Mhm.
um, and Angie had been sharing some of Lisa's very valuable posts and information, and I really found it resonated with me. So then we connected, and I'm very grateful that we have.
I'm so happy we have to.
Thank you. So maybe now you can also add anything you'd like to your introduction or about your background.
It sounds like I need to maybe cut down my bio a little bit. That's a lot of information all in one.
Oh,
No, but
so good.
it's all accurate. I'm just really, really passionate about helping leaders really get clear on how they get out of their own way so they can live, lead, and succeed on their own terms.
Wow, that's succinct, but says a lot. A lot a lot there to unpack. Okay, well, I'll ask you questions, so we'll talk about all of this and go from there. So,
Great.
as a coach, when you work with someone who is driven, how do you help them get clear on their purpose, and if they aren't already clear on that?
All of the work that I do with people is an inside job. We want the outer results, we want the outer success, we want the outer change. And spoiler alert, it all starts inside. So I really help people get first the clarity in what they want. Usually people just don't know. Then find the confidence in who they are, as well as cultivating the courage to stay true to both. So if somebody isn't really unclear, or they're not really clear on what their purpose is, we really take a good look at who they are, what their values are, what they want out of life, and how they want to feel. And from there, people really tend to know what their purpose is. It's just they don't know how to trust that feeling. So it's kind of easier to get to than you may think.
Okay, that makes complete sense. You talk about self-worth and net worth, and how have you seen the relationship play out in your life and in with coaching different clients between that?
I mean, how much time do we have for for this one? Being a professional woman, there are so many obstacles. And even if we don't see a tangible obstacle in front of us, there are so many inner obstacles. And that feels like imposter syndrome, confidence or lack thereof, a false sense of needing to keep up with the Joneses or feeling like we have this pressure to perform. And then there are a lot of systemic and cultural issues that affect us without even really knowing it. Like we talked about this before, but 1974 was the first year a woman was quote unquote allowed to have a mortgage or a credit card in her own name without permission from a male cosigner. So when we talk about, what's the gap between our self-worth and our net worth? Usually people either overperform and they just try to prove and prove and prove and get as much money as they possibly can without really identifying how they feel, or do they feel worthy enough? Or the flip side for professional women, as I know we both know, is that they undercharge like you wouldn't believe. They undercharge because they actually undervalue their services, their expertise, and their worth. And so my goal is to help reconcile women in particular, reconcile both of those things. So really embody the full sense of their value, charge accordingly without having to chase that moving target of success and without getting on that, hamster wheel of like, it's never enough. And as soon as my income goes up, my expenses go up. We want to feel what enough, or really identify what enough looks and feels like for you specifically, and then use that as the foundation around which to build the rest of your life.
And that's amazing. And I guess a question comes to my mind of, from my own experience, sometimes I get to the point where I feel very confident, know my value, know my worth, and then I can fall back. So maybe something happens, or imposter syndrome, something in my head. Um, without, I'm sure you have a lot of valuable tools that someone needs to work with you to really get at, but maybe just an idea. How do you help people sustain that, and not lose it as soon as they're done with the coaching, or that kind of thing?
That's such a passion for me because I have found from my own personal experiences and just as an observer, a lot of coaches or motivational speakers or what have you they're really focused on the dopamine high. So yeah, it feels great when you're working with them or you go to, a retreat weekend and like, man, you feel like you're on top of the world. And then you get back to your real life and have no idea what to do. So that is a part of like my kind of signature approach because we're not just working with your mindset, we're working with your entire body. Like we're working with your unconscious, we're working with your belief system. We're looking at how you see the world and what that means to you at like a visceral cellular level. I'm somebody who had experienced a lot of trauma in my early years and adult years. And so, I heavily relate to like, I'm doing it, I'm falling behind. I'm doing it, I'm falling behind. What we want to look at to help create long term success is really, it starts with the awareness that like humans aren't linear. Like we're very up and down, right? We're very wavy. So we want to start with that shift in recognizing that there's not something wrong with you every time you have a setback. It's just part of the human experience. And then we can go through so many self-supporting, self-coaching educational tools to really get you out of that slump or that period of feeling stuck, recognizing that expansion and growth feels confronting every single time that we do it. So, if we can really get clear on what specifically activates us or triggers us, then we can set you up for success with so many like on demand tools for you to be like, oh, right, this is the feeling I'm having. Here's what it usually means. All I have to do is X, Y, or Z to come through it.
That's excellent. That's going to sustain it. Yeah. Um, okay, so you've had complex changes and, as you say, some trauma in your life, so you can relate to, and I'm sure many people who are listening can relate to some what you've been through in terms of divorce, having children. Maybe they've had a severe illness.
Mhm.
What are some lessons you've learned through those challenges that you help people with because of what you learned?
The expression, like, how do you eat an elephant? You just start one bite at a time. I think that so many of us got that experience through the pandemic that it was like, it was so overwhelming. Like, how are we going to deal with this? That you break it down into teeny tiny little bite sized actionable pieces, right? Like, today I'm going to make the soup. Everybody started making bread. It's like that with any kind of adversity, with any challenge, with any, no matter how big or how small, it's teeny tiny little baby steps amount to a huge transformation. So it's having the dedication, the perseverance, the confidence, the resilience, and honestly, the decision to make that change and allow yourself the grace and permission to go slowly, like go intentionally, but go slowly through it.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm loving everything.
Good.
Oh, it feels very, very helpful and inspiring.
Good. Good. That's the whole point.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so in my field of mortgages, interest rates have been higher over the last year or so, and it's caused a lot of challenges for people. Also, a lot of people, they're up for renewal and they had this low rate, lowish payment compared to what they're going to have. And so people many people aren't prepared. They didn't really go, oh, I can see this is happening. Maybe I should start doing, whether it means saving or putting more on the mortgage or getting another job or whatever. So now we're confronted with some serious challenges. So would be when something like this happens where somebody has to kind of face something difficult, what would be maybe one piece of advice for that type of client that I work with?
I think that with mortgages specifically, I think it starts with awareness. I mean, Canadians in general are not making enough money. Like, we're really not making enough money. Women in particular are definitely not making enough money. Like, I think the number is about 3% of working Canadian women are earning 100K or more. And that's nothing. It costs us $80,000 a year minimum to live, and I mean live with, like, your bills are paid, your food is no problem, and you get to go on a vacation. So, like, live pretty comfortably, let's say. 80K a person. Well, if only 3% of women are making 100K or more, that means that most women are just simply not earning enough money. So now you throw this ripple effect of the insanity of mortgage rates, and no kidding, people are terrified. And that's the reality. And so I think for me, it really starts with, it sounds really simple and almost maybe too basic, but it's profoundly impactful to take a step back and just realize, yeah, this is terrifying. And it's not just like, oh, my mortgage rate is high. It's my need, my basic human need for shelter, safety, and survival feels like it is being threatened right now. People live incredibly complicated lives with our own family dynamics and our own unresolved stuff from the past. So now you throw a massive activator that relates to money, housing, family, safety, security, and shelter. Most people don't have the means to just put more towards their mortgage. So it's like taking a step back and realizing this is really scary. This is really confronting. It wasn't necessarily my fault. Like, how were we to know? But, like, no kidding, consumers didn't see this coming. So many experts didn't see this coming either, right? And so people who took on a variable rate thought they were making a good decision. And you know better than I do, looking historically at variable versus fixed, it is a good decision. And so many people were hit with this, unprecedented event, that having this, like, being able to name it and then de-shame it and be like, I'm not a bad person because I've got myself into this financial situation. This is circumstantial, allows us then to reframe the situation and look at, okay, so what is it that I have to do? Like, are there sacrifices, compromises? Are there, those Hail Mary measures I have to take in order to weather this storm? While also realizing it won't always be this way. So it's like, yeah, it's really scary right now. No, it's not my fault. Yes, I'm taking every baby step I can possibly do, even if it's like, feels like a rock bottom moment, and also appreciate it's not going to be like this forever. It will eventually get better.
I think that's amazing. I see a upcoming post we're going to be sharing with
Great.
giving you full credit.
I did a
Because
podcast on my own about this, about like how
okay,
to take the shame out of your variable rate mortgage, because I've worked with clients who are high earners, they're high performers, they're running legit viable businesses, and mortgage rates
yeah.
kills them.
Well, that is really helpful. That's I'm going to process all that for myself. So thank you. Good, really good in clarifying those steps of
Good, good.
getting to the place of okay, I am okay, and
Yes,
this is what I'm now going to do because there is so much to behind it, like you say.
yes.
So that's very valuable. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
I work with a lot of investors in real estate, so they will use it's a source of income for them or a potential income later in life when they're going to retire. Um, and there are a lot of people who want to get into investing and who they're afraid. There's a lot of
Mhm.
fear of what if interest rates, what if this, what if that. So I don't know if you work with a lot of the investors, but how do you help people to kind of take action? I mean, you kind of answered that a bit in what you just said before, but anything else specifically about those investors who want to buy more properties or
Mhm. Again, I come at everything through the lens of emotional intelligence. And so for me, my outlook is that we all have a very complicated and often tortured relationship with money. And so I break it down into we have this wealth IQ, all of the facts, figures, tools, rules, regulations, vehicles for wealth building. That's what finance professionals excel at, the IQ. And then there's that EQ, which tends to be 90% of our relationship to money, but it's so buried far, far back in the background, we don't even notice it. But the EQ of wealth is really looking at our emotional relationship to money. So whenever again, when we feel activated or triggered or that fear really kicks in, it's usually a reflection of it's activating an old story. So if somebody grew up with parents or if they were heavily involved with grandparents who grew up during the war or even going further back into our family lineages like during the depression, depending on your family relationship and your positioning in status and wealth during those significant times of economic change, that's going to wildly impact your feelings about safety, security, investing. The Kennedys did they performed so well during the depression that they all had this like family association with depression meant like really high time. For most other people, the depression was obviously so devastating that kept sent like a cascading intergenerational fear around money, around trusting banks, around trusting investments. And so again, it sounds really simple and basic, but maybe it's time to just take a little step back and ask yourself a couple of questions like, where are these stories coming from? Are these stories true? Or is it a fear that's kind of motivating or adversely impacting my decisions on moving forward?
Oh my gosh, you have all the answers.
I got them all. I wish I had them all.
I love it, but it's very helpful. So that's great, and I'm going to be re-listening to this and unpacking it for myself. So good. Um, yeah, because I need to take some effort to process, but really great. I appreciate it. And you talk about being able to define what enough feels like, and I guess I've never really thought of it from that specific angle. Are there any, you know, little tips you could share about that of how to define what enough feels like for you?
I love this story from one of my clients because I take all my clients through this exercise and what does enough feel like for you? Motivated by the fact that, as I said, 3% of Canadian women are making 100K, uh, period, doesn't feel like it's enough. But we also have family friends who are doing really financially well, and on paper, they look so successful. And as their wealth and net worth has increased, their expenses have gone up so much to the extent that for some of them, their monthly operating burn is about 90K a month. So suddenly, making a few million bucks doesn't a year doesn't feel like enough because their expenses are so high. It's such a fluctuating number. There's no static or status quo definition of what enough actually means, except for our relationship to what it means. So, working with one of my clients in particular last year, we went through this exercise of what does enough feel like for you? And she was like, I would get to spend time at my lake house. I'd get to have time with my kids at home, do work that I love, and still have enough time for me with this particular salary or revenue goal that she had. And it was like this lightning bolt moment because she stepped back and she was like, but I have that. Like the ideal description that I just gave you is exactly where my life is at. And so what that did was create a sense of freedom and permission for her to stop chasing the next thing and like beating herself up if she couldn't get to the next goal. She was like, I'm so happy with what I've created. All I'm going to do is sustain this. And like for me as a practitioner, it will never not resonate because it was such a beautiful moment to have that awareness of like, I did it. Like I became successful and now I just get to enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm actually there. Didn't even realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, makes sense. Um, you, I'm sure have had so many experiences personally and with clients. Is there anything I haven't really covered in the questions I've asked that you feel would be worth sharing or be beneficial to talk about?
So much of what we've talked about, even in this brief period, spanning these like verticals of subjects, it it comes down to self-awareness and these conversations and communication you have with yourself. So we think we have all these problems, these little leaves on a branch of all these little problems that we have. And really, if we start to trace those leaves and branches and down to the root, we find the answer that we're looking for at the root cause. And that tends to be what affects everything else in our life. So if we give ourselves the grace, just like stop, get to know who we are, and kind of explore where these stories, feelings, or reactions are coming from, that's a great Kickstarter to living a better, more fulfilling financial life, relational life, just emotional life in general.
I think that makes so much sense. And I know for myself, um, as I age, I'm
Mhm.
more and more aware of how important that is, and knowing that, taking that time and effort is so worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. I'm glad you're getting that.
Yeah. Thank you. So what is your last piece of advice for Canadians right now? It's a very broad question.
That's that's such a broad question. Um, get Taylor Swift tickets and sell them at beyond retail value. I think would probably be number one. If you can
That
find Taylor Swift tickets.
that's a very unique and valuable tip. Oh my God. Not at all what I was expecting. But good.
And valuable experience, let me say.
Yes. Okay. That's can't beat that. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so grateful that you've taken this time and been so generous with all of this information. And I truly, I'm gonna work on this and stay in touch with you. And how can people reach you if they want to connect with you?
I'm on Instagram at Leisse Wilcox, Leisse Wilcox, if I could say my own name, LinkedIn at Leisse Wilcox, and my website is leissewilcox.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're so welcome.